Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. So I do want to let you know that we are recording this session today, so it will be recorded and you can access it later. So we just ask if you are asking any questions in the chat to make sure that you're not giving any personal information. So to start off with, my name is Erin. I work for UBC Engineering, and I'd like to start by acknowledging that the UBC Vancouver Campus is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. Now, I hope that you're all doing well this morning, and I am so happy you're able to be a part of our event, and I'm so happy that so many of you are understanding that we obviously had to move it online and not have it in person like we were planning. All right, so to start us off this morning, I'm going to turn it over to Emma, who is going to give you a welcome as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Emma, as Erin mentioned, and I'm a fourth-year chemical and biological engineering student, and I'm also the co-chair for the outreach program for women in engineering. And I would like to again welcome you guys to this online platform. Like, this isn't what we originally planned, but we're so happy that you could join us through this way. And due to the current circumstances, obviously, this was a way to keep safe and keep us safe. And so we hope that you will still have something to take away from the discussions we have planned from our keynote speaker, as well as from the panelist speakers as well, and that you will speak onto your determination and your decision if you decide to get into engineering. And then finally, just on behalf of women in engineering, I want to thank you all for attending this event. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Emma. So to start off this morning, I'm going to share some slides with you and give you a quick introduction into what UBC Engineering is about. All right, so I know that some of you that are in grade 12 might have already applied to UBC Engineering, but I'm going to start off, like I said, with a quick introduction into kind of what UBC Engineering has to offer so that you have a little bit of an idea before we get into our keynote and our panelist members as well. So to start off with, at the Vancouver campus, we have 14 different undergraduate programs. So there are so many different options for you to choose from as a student. And there are such a variety of different ways to study different types of engineering as well. So for example, what I mean by that is we have our biomedical engineering program. This is a pretty new program. It started a couple of years ago. But we also have some biomedical options. So if you're doing electrical engineering, you can also do a biomedical option within that. Or if you're doing mechanical engineering, you can also do a biomedical option. So there's a lot of ways to really learn about what all those different programs are and to understand kind of which area you want to go into. Now, I'll mention that we also have 4 programs offered at the Okanagan campus. So if you're interested in potentially going to our campus that's located in Kelowna, there's still 4 programs that are also offered there. And what I'll also mention is that you don't have to choose what program you're going to go into right now. One of the great things about UBC Engineering is that we have what's called a foundational first year. So you get to learn about all of those different engineering programs before you have to choose which program you're going to go into. So you won't actually start your specialized program until your second year. Now, I want to mention that engineers are always working together to solve problems as a team. And as part of today's event, the hope was to have you all on teams working together as part of our mini hackathon, which members of our Women in Engineering Club worked really hard to create a challenge that would introduce you to kind of what engineering is about. But unfortunately, we weren't really able to adapt that part of the session to this online platform with such short notice. But I do want to mention that engineers are always working on teams. And one example of that is our design teams. So at UBC, we have more than 30 engineering design teams, and these are extracurricular teams outside of the classroom that allow students to get hands-on experience, as well as sometimes compete against top institutions around the world. So these are some great opportunities, and part of today was that we were going to introduce you to some of our design teams and show you some of the projects they're working on. We have lots of information about our design teams online, as well as in the email for those of you that had registered for this event. I sent out a few videos so that you can at least get a little bit introduced to what some of our design teams do. Now, the last kind of few things I want to mention is that there's so much opportunity available at UBC Engineering, so you can design right from the start. We have project-based team learning in pretty much every class, or at least in every year of your studies, you'll be a part of some sort of project-based team learning in your classes. And so that really allows you to work on a team with other people, because that's what engineers do in the workforce. We also have our capstone design projects, which is a really cool opportunity where you get to work with industry partners in your final year of studies and actually design something or innovate a process that's already been around but make it better. And so that's a really cool project for our students to work on, because they get to kind of really focus on one unique area before they finish their degree here and to kind of wrap up their degree. Now, we also have engineering co-op, which I think we'll be talking about a little bit later as well. So engineering co-op is a paid work experience program at UBC, and so it is a really great opportunity for students to get work experience in the field. You get paid really well, but I think our keynote's going to talk about that a little bit as well, so I won't say too much. Another great opportunity is to go abroad. So we have the coordinated international experience where you can actually study engineering at different institutions around the world. We have our Go Global program, which allows you to go around the world as well. I mentioned our design teams, and we also have some really great engineering clubs. So engineering is one of those clubs that I mentioned that helped to actually plan today's event. It's a student-led club that helps support women in engineering. And we also have clubs like Engineers Without Borders, Engineers for Sustainability, and so there's a lot of really great opportunities available to you. And all of that is kind of part of what we call our Engineering Undergraduate Society. And so they are supportive. They're kind of like the student government for engineering, and they support our students by offering tutoring sessions to first-year students. They organize several events throughout the year that students can get involved with. And I think every student I talk to, that's something that always comes around, is that just there is such a great community among students. So that's something that might be today as well, but in every student I talk to, they just love the community of UBC Engineering, and so hopefully today we're able to welcome you into that community a little bit, even if it is virtually. So again, if you're just joining us, welcome. For those of you that just logged in, you'll see a tab in the bottom right-hand corner where you can ask your questions. For those questions that are kind of admissions-based or maybe not directly on topic, we will hold off on some of those until the end of the presentation. So if you're asking those, feel free to ask them, but we'll get to them until the end of the presentation. But feel free to continue to ask your questions. And coming up first, we're going to have Kelsey Priest, who is our keynote speaker, and you'll get to ask her a few questions after she's done her presentation. And then afterwards, we'll move on to the panel that Kelsey, Cheyenne, and Michelle will all be a part of. So Cheyenne and Michelle are both current students. You'll be able to ask them questions about their experience. But right now we have Kelsey up. So Kelsey, over to you.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning into the webinar today, and thank you to UBC for setting this up and adapting so quickly to turn it into a webinar. Due to COVID-19, I know all of our lives have been shaken up. I've been pretty fortunate that I'm able to work from home. I've been working from home for the last 2 weeks, so it's been different but interesting. I've also been really looking forward to interacting with some new people today since I've been home alone. I'm told that everyone watching the webinar today has the option to either view the presentation full screen or the image of me. I have a lot of information in my presentation, so I'd recommend clicking on the presentation so that you see it on the full screen. Today I wanted to talk to you about a career in engineering, where I'm at with my career and where you can go with engineering. So today I will be covering a little bit about me, how I got into engineering, where my career is at, as well as why I think engineering is such a great profession to go into, and what it's like to be a woman in engineering. So because I'm just a small little face on the corner of your screen, I wanted to give you a bit of context about who I am and what I like to do with my life. I work as a structural engineer. I also love the outdoors and have an adorable cat named Angus who's not sure what to make about me being home all the time now. I also love to travel. After graduating university, I spent a few months traveling Europe, and ever since then, every year I try and take one big trip. I love traveling so that I can learn about new cultures and try new food. So why did I go into engineering and how did I decide on that? There's a couple of reasons why I went into engineering. One of them would be my affinity for math and science. I found that I enjoyed my math and science classes in high school. It wasn't that they came super easy to me. I had to work really hard at these classes, but I enjoyed working hard because I liked the challenges and the rewards involved in those classes. Another reason why I decided to go into engineering is my dad was an engineer, but he's an electrical engineer. And for whatever reason, I just wasn't interested at all in what he did. But my best friend's dad was a structural engineer, and I can remember I was like quite young, maybe 6 or 7, driving through downtown Vancouver in the back of his car. And he was pointing up at all these buildings saying, oh, I designed this one, I designed that. And I remember just looking out the window at these towering skyscrapers and thinking that had to be one of the coolest jobs in the world. He had designed a lot of the buildings in Cole Harbour, and those buildings are still there today. As I got older, my love of architecture grew, so going into engineering made a lot of sense for me. So once I decided I was going to go into engineering, I had to pick a university. I applied to a few universities across Canada. Ultimately, I decided on UBC because Vancouver was set to have the Olympics in my first year of university. I definitely didn't want to miss that. The other good thing is that, Erin mentioned this already, but UBC has a general first year. So if you're pretty indecisive like me, I know I said I wanted to be a structural engineer, but I still wasn't really sure. I mean, how can you really know? So taking a general first year was super useful for me. You apply for your discipline that you'd like to go into in second year. I was still thinking about structural engineering, but I was surprised that I was really interested in a lot of the other programs, like Eng Physics. I just found the courses really interesting, and chemical engineering too. Ultimately, I decided to go into civil engineering as a way of not making a decision. I felt like there were so many options open to me if I went into civil engineering. So once you specialize in civil engineering, you can also specialize further in fourth year into geotechnical, hydrological, transportation, environmental, structural, project management. There's just so many options open to me. So I got into the civil program for second year, and then you also have the option of applying to the engineering co-op program. I found like a very good percentage of the students applied for the co-op program. I don't know what the stats are now. I'm sure someone from UBC can tell us that after. But it's an amazing program that teaches you resume writing skills and cover letter writing skills. Super useful. They had practice interviews. They also have a large job board so that there's all these co-op listings that you can apply for. It does extend your degree by 1 year, but you gain 20 months of work experience, which is super valuable. I did all of my work experience as a structural engineer at various companies around Vancouver. And then I ended up getting hired back from the company that I did my last co-op programs with. So even before I graduated, I had a job lined up for after university. The other amazing thing about the co-op program is that it pays well. So taking the co-op program, you're able to graduate without student loans and maybe have a little bit of money left over to travel after. So my career now, where am I at? I am working as a structural engineer at a local company called Glotman Simpson Consulting Engineers. The company has about 85 employees. We also have a small office in Los Angeles and one in Calgary. I started at the company in 2012 as a co-op student, and I've been there ever since. Since I graduated, I've been designing mostly concrete residential high-rises. I've been working in the city of Vancouver, Los Angeles, San Diego, Victoria, and Seattle. Our company really specializes in seismic design or earthquake design of buildings. So anywhere where there's earthquakes is where we find our work. I've been working on a lot of really cool projects since I graduated. One that's been taking up a lot of my time lately is called Olympic and Hill in Los Angeles. It's a 60-story concrete tower. It's currently in the design phase, so the two images that you see on the screen, those are just architectural renderings. It's not actually built yet. This job involves bi-weekly trips to LA to meet with the project team, normally. Obviously, they're put on hold right now, which is kind of nice. We're able to connect over conference calls instead. So structural engineering is a lot more than just sitting at a desk crunching numbers. Structural engineering involves a lot of collaboration with multidisciplinary teams. I work daily with architects, clients, other types of engineers. Structural engineering also requires strong organizational skills and communication skills. Another thing that I really like about being a structural engineer is that it's a very creative profession. I was interested in art and design when I was in high school as well. So being a structural engineer allows me to exercise both the mathematical side of my brain, but also be very creative. Another project that takes up a lot of my time, I've been working on this project since 2015. It's called 1200 Stewart Street in Seattle. It's two 48-story concrete residential towers. There's rooftop pools and hot tubs, and it's currently in construction. So I was involved, I'm the lead structural engineer on it. I did the preliminary design, so coming up with where the supports are in the building. The image on the screen is still just the architectural rendering because it's not built yet. A lot of my daily coordination on this building is no longer with the client so much. It's with the team building the building, so the contractor, and as well as the construction workers and essentially the boss of the construction workers. So I've learned to adapt my communication style and the language I use based on who I'm talking to. It was really interesting my first year of working on a project that was in construction. I found that I had to learn a lot of lingo really fast. The terms that I learned in university and at my job were a little bit different from what they were using on site. So when I had a call from site, I'd be rapidly Googling, trying to figure out what they were talking about and see if I understood if that was the same as what I'd learned in school. So it was really interesting going through construction. And now that I've been working on projects in construction for like 4 or 5 years, it's gotten a lot easier. So I know that my friends and family don't always understand the difference between an architect and a structural engineer. So I thought I'd give a little bit of an explanation today too. So the architect comes up with the look and the layout and the function of the building. So again, we have an architectural rendering of what the building looks like. And then architectural floor plans. So they come up with what the units look like, how big they are, the layout. And then I do my best to make the best building possible by determining where all the structural elements are. So I determine where the supports are, how big they are, how the building will stand up under normal conditions, as well as how do I make a resilient building under wind conditions such as a strong windstorm or into an earthquake. We want to protect the occupants inside the building. So that is my job. And we do this by building computer models. So the image on the left is, it's actually showing the deflection of a floor slab from one of the computer models that I use. And then I prepare construction documents, which is the image to the right. So I've been working on concrete buildings. Concrete has reinforcing or rear. So I calculate and lay out all of the reinforcing in the building. And then I get to go to site, or we have one of our field engineers go to site to make sure that what's being placed on site is matching what we designed. And the result is a finished building. So the image on the screen is one of the first buildings that I saw from beginning, from preliminary sketches to completion. That feeling I had as a kid in the backseat of my friend's car, looking up at these buildings and hearing him say, I designed that. Now I have that feeling, and looking at this building, it's one of those feelings. It's really cool to see like families coming in and out of the building and people using it. I know that I was involved in making this building possible. I've also had my hand in about 20 or so buildings around Vancouver now, so I get to drive around the city with my friends or my boyfriend and point up at all these buildings that I've worked on. And it really is a cool feeling. So I've talked a little bit about my job and why I like engineering, but there's so many more options. So I wanted to share why I think engineering is such a great profession. Engineering contributing to solving today's challenges, such as providing clean water access, health and wellness advancements, renewable energy, improving infrastructure, cybersecurity. We really do make the world a better place. I'm a structural engineer, and I've told you a little bit about what we do. But when I was in high school, I didn't really know how many types of engineering disciplines were available to me. And I thought it would be useful to highlight some other roles that engineers have in shaping our society. So here are some of the professions that I think really make the world a better place. There's biomedical engineers that develop artificial organs, advanced prosthetics. Environmental engineers improve air, land, and water quality to create a healthy environment. Civil engineers are involved with the infrastructure that connects the world. Mechatronics and physics engineers design MRI and X-ray machines, among many other things. Electrical engineers develop innovative and renewable energy resources, and there's just so more options. So I really encourage you to do your research, but also don't fret it if you don't know what you want to do yet, because there is that general first year. Another great reason to pursue engineering are the amazing opportunities and well-paying jobs. So in my opinion, an engineering undergraduate degree is one of the few that will set you up for a successful career without doing continued studies. There's a lot of job opportunities for people with undergraduate engineering degrees. Graduates with STEM degrees have better job security. So STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. 70% of top jobs require STEM education. The salaries are pretty good. There was a compensation survey done of all engineers and geoscientists in BC in 2016. And junior engineers who have a year or two of experience were reporting that they're earning a little over $63,000 on average in BC. And then the median wage of all engineers who reported were earning $94,000. So you can set yourself up for a very comfortable life by going into engineering. I also wanted to share some of my roles in the industry. These are the women who inspire me to do better in my career. I've either met them or seen them speak at various events around Vancouver, and I just think that they're doing amazing things. So on the left, we have Catherine Room. She is the president and CEO of Technical Safety BC. It's an independent organization mandated to oversee the safe installation and operation of technical equipment in BC. She was also ranked one of the top 100 in Canada, and she has an electrical engineering degree. The next image is Liana Ma. She's someone I really look up to and is a champion for women in engineering. She is VP of Business Development at Associated Engineering. Associated Engineering is a large company in Canada that has over 1,000 staff, and she has a civil engineering degree. Kate Morin is the president and CEO of Ocean Networks Canada. What that company does is data monitoring on the oceans around Canada, and this enables evidence-based decision-making on ocean management, disaster mitigation, and environmental protection. And she's an ocean engineer. On the very right, we have Nadia Chris. She is the manager of engineering and project delivery at TransLink, and she is a structural engineer. So there's a lot of opportunities to be very successful in your career with an engineering degree. Why do I think it's amazing to be a woman in engineering? I wanted to tell you a little bit about that and why the industry so badly needs more women to go into engineering. So engineers are developed in the built environment, the things we use and interact with on a daily basis. And I truly believe that the engineering society as a whole needs to reflect the diversity in society in order to create the best products. So when thinking about what I wanted to share with you today, I just Googled a few engineering failures as a result of not having diversity on the project team. And these are a few that came up. So Apple's health monitoring app, when it was initially released, it tracked basically everything about human health, but it left out menstrual cycle monitoring, which is obviously a huge part of women's health. Another flaw that was created from a lack of diversity was initial voice recognition software. It didn't recognize women's voices, children's voices, or anyone with accents. So that's obviously a huge design failure. Another one that's quite shocking and pretty disappointing is when in a car accident, women are 47% more likely to be seriously injured. And that's because the testing that was done for vehicle crashes was done with the average male body. And women are on average shorter, so we're not sitting in the same position. So you can see how having a more diverse design team with different perspectives could have prevented all of these engineering failures. Another reason why women should go into engineering is because there's quite a business case for it. I hope that you can see the images on the screen, but if you can't, you can download them from w.ca. So that stands for West Coast Women in Engineering and Science and Technology. And they've created these white pages that have really great infographics about women in engineering and women in STEM. So it's quite amazing, but if a company has more than 3 women on the board of directors, the return on sales compared to a company without women on the board is up to 84% higher. So women are making huge improvements to the profits of companies by being in leadership positions. Women also improve the board governance and decision-making abilities. And if you think about it, if you're only looking for applicants for your company from half the population, so only looking at men, you're really missing out on a lot of the top talent and a lot of ideas. Women also naturally make really great leaders. Companies are increasingly looking for people with strong soft skills. So everyone who graduates with an engineering degree is expected to have some level of technical ability, but it's the soft skills that will set you apart as a leader at your company. And studies have shown that women outperform men in most emotional intelligence categories. So this isn't true of everyone, but generally women have a better ability with soft skills such as collaborating, effective communication, and problem solving. Another amazing thing about being a woman in engineering is all of the resources available to us. Erin mentioned this at the beginning, but at the university level, there's UBC Women in Engineering, and I'm pretty certain that every university now has a Women in Engineering chapter. I know all the ones in Vancouver do. And it's a really amazing program and a great way to stay connected with other women in engineering. They have mentorship events and social events. I was at UBC a few weeks ago as a mentor at the WISE Mentorship Night, and I have to say it was an amazing event. And then at the career level, there's also a lot of support for women. In 2018, I launched a nonprofit called Women in Consulting Engineering. So we support and champion women in engineering. We provide a strong support network, and we have fun monthly events. Unfortunately, all of those are on hold right now because of COVID, but it's been a really fun way to meet other women in industry. So if you find yourself at a company without very many women working in engineering, you can come to our events and meet 100 women every month, and it's been really fun. So before I leave you for questions, I just wanted to put up a screen with some resources and inspiration that you can look into. There's a couple of Instagram accounts that I think are really interesting. There's Engineering Gals, which just features different women working in engineering, so you can learn about different professions available to you. On the right, there's Eng Stories, which is a channel created by UBC engineers, and it talks about a day in the life of an engineer at UBC. There's also W West, which I mentioned, for the really cool white pages that they've created. UBC Gearing Up has programs that they run for high school and elementary school students. And then there's also 2 websites I've left up there that just teach you about different engineering jobs. So that's all I wanted to say to you, and I think we have some time for questions now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelsey. That was great. Even I learned a lot from that presentation, so I really appreciate it. So I know that there's been a lot of questions coming in this morning. A lot of them look to be focused around admissions, which like I mentioned, we'll get towards at the end of the session today. There's a lot of questions about student experience right now, and I think those would be great for our panel coming up. Does anyone have any questions that you'd like to type in for Kelsey specifically right now? So there's a question from Esmera. Could you please describe what your co-op experience was like, Kelsey?
Yeah, so I was pretty nervous going into co-op because I thought I had really bad work experience from high school. I'd worked a minimum wage job as a dishwasher at a restaurant, and then I'd also worked on a touristy farm out in the valley. And I was like, man, how am I ever going to get an engineering company to be interested in me? And then the co-op program was unbelievable. They were so good at helping us tailor our experience to look good to the employers. So I actually got interviews for every job I applied for through co-op. So was that, and then also when I went to co-op interviews, I was very enthusiastic and excited to learn. And my first job was at a company called SNC Lavalin, and the co-op experience was really amazing. The first job, you don't have too many technical skills because you've only completed second year, but they taught me a lot about like project management and teamwork. And then going into my next co-op work terms, I was able to take on more of an engineering role and do a little bit of design. And I found that doing co-op and getting this hands-on work experience made going back to university and sitting in the classes more interesting, because I had a little bit of perspective as to what I was learning and how it would be applied in the real world.
Thanks. All right, so there's another question that came in. Sorry, let me just find it. So what were some of the struggles that you personally ran into going into UBC Engineering as a woman and in general? Is there anything students should look out for?
It's funny, I actually didn't know that engineering was male dominated when I was in high school, so I just went into it and I didn't really notice being a minority because I made so many great friends in engineering. I also wanted to mention that the first year engineering program, what's really unique about it is you sign up for what they call a standard timetable. So I would sign up for like timetable A, and then everyone else who signs up for timetable A, you're with all those people for every class. So you walk between classes together and you make a lot of friends. I had plenty of female friends within my engineering classes, so I didn't really notice that there were less women than men. The biggest struggle I've had in my career is that I was pretty shy. I had pretty low confidence. I never really thought I'd be good enough. Like working at Glotman Simpson was my dream job, but I was like, oh man, they're so advanced. How will I be good enough to work there? And I'm really happy to report back and say that you can learn confidence skills. So I've had a lot of encouragement and support from the management at my company. And every time they send me to a construction site or a new meeting where I have to present, I know that they believe in me, and that's really built my confidence. So anyone out there like me who is struggling with confidence or feeling like you're a little bit shy, don't worry about it. Engineering is a great place to work on your personal development and become more confident.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And so there's another question directed towards you, Kelsey. So how do structural engineering companies get the contracts for projects? And how does the business side of this look? And what role do you take in the business side of it all? So a little bit more technical.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it depends which company you're talking about. Some companies are working on government jobs. We do a little bit of that, so you have to bid and show that you can come up with the best design and have a team that's capable of handling that work. At Glotman Simpson, the company has been around for over 50 years, so a lot of our work is from repeat business or from people referring to us. So we work with a lot of pretty big developers in Vancouver that give us repeat jobs. But what's interesting is that working in engineering, like I really want to reiterate that it's not just sitting at your desk crunching numbers. It is a customer service job. So a lot of what I do is making sure that the client is happy by communicating with them, keeping them updated on my deadlines and where I'm at, so that we can keep getting repeat work. So at my level, I'm a project engineer. This means that I'm the lead structural engineer on a lot of the projects I work on. I'm not involved as much with the business decisions at this point, but I do play a role in it by being the best engineer I can be and by providing the best service to the clients and other architects so that they ask me to work on projects again. And that's already happened where I've had clients call my boss and say, hey, we want to give you this project, but we want Kelsey to work on it. So that's the best that I do right now to get more work for the company.
Awesome. And so I'm going to go with a couple more questions and then we'll move on to the panel. Okay. So the next question that I have is, in your structural engineering career, did you ever feel like you didn't get enough credit for your work or equal opportunities?
Yeah, I was so worried about this. I was worried about being a woman engineer and going onto construction sites, and I've certainly heard from other women when I go to some professional development courses that this is something they struggle with. I'm really fortunate at Glotman Simpson that my company is really an equal opportunity employer, and we have I don't know if anyone's familiar with the word champion, but it's someone who not only supports and encourages you, but they go around and tell other people to give you opportunities too. And the managers at Glotman Simpson have really been champions for me. So when I go to meetings with like one of the named principals of the company, who is an incredible engineer and known over North America, we'll sit in the meeting and he'll be like, I didn't do the work, Kelsey did the work, you have to ask Kelsey the question. So I've been really fortunate, and I think that that's something that everyone will experience in their career. I think that you should ask questions when you go in for interviews to try and figure out what the company culture is, to make sure that you end up at a company like I have that supports women.
Mix frozen.
Yours is frozen? I can read through the questions too if you'd like.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Oh, no, I can't.
All right, can you hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So the last question I was going to ask was, someone had asked, what was your most memorable experience at UBC?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know if I had one experience that was super memorable, but I would say that each year got better and better. I was a pretty, I guess, high stress student that I just studied all the time, and I was really worried about my grades. But then throughout the years, engineering got a little bit easier as my brain changed to process and accept the information I was learning in class better. So my favorite thing about UBC was in fourth year, when I was finally comfortable as a student and able to study a little bit less and focus on having more fun with my friends. A really important thing to get through engineering is to make a strong friend group or study group. So you're almost never alone at UBC. And I just look back on fourth year really fondly. We worked really hard, but we studied together and did all of our assignments together. And then we were able to have a lot more fun hanging out in the civil clubhouse. So each engineering discipline has somewhere like a room or clubhouse on campus where you can hang out and get to know your classmates. And I just think we had a lot of fun in fourth year hanging out.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. So I am going to give all of our panelist members a second to turn on their cameras. And then we are going to start with the panel questions. So again, if you still have questions, feel free to keep asking those. We're trying to compile them so that they're kind of grouped together by subject matter, and we'll get started on those shortly. So just give us 1 second for everyone to turn on their cameras. So what I'll get you all to do first is to introduce yourself. We've heard from Kelsey, but Cheyenne, do you want to introduce yourself first? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Cheyenne Gleisen. I'm in my last month of chemical engineering at UBC, so graduation quite soon. I started university actually at UVic in their chemistry program, and then I switched to UBC for chemical engineering quite shortly after. I decided to make the jump because I wanted to learn more about chemistry in real world applications, and I found the chemistry program quite theoretical, so I knew that chemical engineering would be the program for me. Since moving to UBC, I've actually been fairly involved in our engineering community. I've held numerous volunteer positions with our Engineering Undergraduate Society. And a lot of these positions are aimed at organizing social events and different sports teams for our students. So it's a lot of fun. Also, as a part of my degree, I've been in the co-op program, so I've completed 5 work terms with them. These positions have been research positions. I've also worked in the food industry, and then I finished off in the mining industry. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Excellent. And Michelle, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle Lin. I am in my second year of biomedical engineering at UBC. Something about me is I was born and raised in Vancouver, so I was here in the Vancouver School Board and I transitioned into university in the same province. And then I was also a part of Engineering Stories, so if you guys were to check out the videos, you guys can find my videos there too. And I was also a part of Student Council at UBC as well.
Excellent. Is there anything else that you want to add, Kelsey?
No, I think I've covered everything.
Great. So I can see you all, so that's perfect. I'm going to leave my video off right now since my computer seems to be struggling. But to start asking some questions, I'm going to start with some of our kind of more student experience-based questions that have come in. So a question from Delaney said, do you suggest joining clubs and design teams, or does joining them not make a difference? What do you guys think about being a part of some of these clubs on campus? Cheyenne, do you want to answer?
Yeah, for sure. So I find like joining clubs and design teams is like one of the more fun experiences at UBC. So that's why I'd like recommend doing it. And also, if you join some of these teams, it looks really good on your resume when you start applying for jobs. And lastly, like you meet so many people through these, and a lot of like, friendships are made in these programs. So I definitely recommend it.
Excellent. The next question we have is kind of related to that, but do you actually have time outside of class for extracurricular activities and joining these clubs? How do you go about managing that? Do you want to answer your experience, Cheyenne, again?
Yeah, for sure. So I work best when busy. I find that these clubs are a nice break from schoolwork, and so I know that, say I have a 2-hour period between when class ends and when I have a sports game or a next meeting or something, I find that I can like hunker down and just do a lot of work in that 2 minutes rather than keep procrastinating.
Yeah, I would add that you can make time. I didn't make time in my first few years at university, but by fourth year, I realized that you just have to set boundaries and take time off school to go work on these extracurriculars. They are really important. I mentioned in my presentation that employers are looking for soft skills, and a great way to develop those are in those teams. So we do appreciate when people have those on their resume when they apply to work at our company.
Great, thank you. So another question that we have from Delaney is, how should people wanting to go to UBC deal with the stress and pressure of the competition? Michelle, do you want to address this question?
Yeah, for sure. I know that coming from high school to university, it's a hard transition, and I was really nervous about, competition and all the like horror stories online of people like dragging each other down. But I can tell you that my experience at UBC has been really good. And even if I was sick for a class or if I was away, my friends and people around me would just offer to give me their notes of the class. So my experience has been really good. There hasn't been a bad competition. I think there's some like really nice competition in that we all help each other study and we study in groups. So I haven't had any like bad times with competition or pressure. I think pressure is always going to be there, but as long as you just continue to be on top of your schoolwork and to work hard, the pressure and everything else will go away.
Great. And Kelsey, a question for you. So what is the workload like in an engineering career?
It depends what type of engineering you go into, and even within structural engineering, there's different companies I could work for that maybe have a lower workload. I do work in consulting, so right now Vancouver's been very busy for development, same with the US. So my workload is quite high. I do work quite a lot of hours, but I also really enjoy the work that I do, so it makes it not feel that bad. And my colleagues, the team at Glotman Simpson, there's a lot of people around the age of 30, so it feels quite fun. We're all kind of working together, so we get through it. Another thing that's really helped me like manage the stress is talking to other engineers at other companies. And that's where starting the nonprofit Women in Consulting Engineering has been super helpful. That when I am feeling just like really crushed from pressure, I go talk to another woman and find out what they do and how they manage it. And every single time I feel better and energized after I go to events and talk to other people to hear how they're handling their stress.
Awesome, thank you. That's some great advice. Michelle, I'll ask you another question kind of related to that. So A said that they've heard that UBC Engineering is a harder degree than other engineering programs. Is that true? You might not be able to answer that question, but how do you go about dealing with the workload in your courses?
Yeah, so in first year and second year, your course load is going to be heavy, but for me, I usually write down everything that's going to be due for the week and in ascending order. So what was due first, I write it down. And I think that what really helped me is kind of putting everything into a routine. So I'm better studying in the morning, so I wake up a little bit earlier before my classes to study. Some people study better at night, so my friends would study after their lectures at night, so they would sleep in and study late. And it's just getting that routine down. And once you get that like routine, it's gonna be super easy to, figure out when am I gonna have my meetings for my clubs, or when am I gonna be going to the design team. So really, it is a hard degree no matter what, and whichever like program you do choose, whether it's engineering or another one, UBC, it's still gonna be hard, but you just gotta find that routine and to just work hard.
Great, thanks. And Kelsey, I'm going to address this next question to you. So there's a question from Palak about, are there many people who just begin working straight after getting their bachelor's degree and don't apply for a master's?
100%. Yeah, lots of people do that. That's what I like about engineering, is that you don't have to go back for a master's right away. And a lot of people find it really beneficial to get some work experience before you go back to your master's. You'll find it a little bit more valuable if you have some real world work experience and you're able to pick what you want to study in your master's based on where you're working. I personally haven't gone back for a master's. I don't plan on it anymore. In structural engineering, there's an association in BC that offers a certificate program. So I can take courses, I think they have 3 semesters a year, and they're taught by other people working in industry. So I'm able to upgrade my skills in areas where I need. Taking structural engineering at UBC as an undergrad or any universities, you don't really get into seismic design because it is so complex. So that's an area where I've had to take supplemental courses through the Structural Engineering Association in BC to upgrade my knowledge.
Awesome, thanks. So Michelle, I'll address this question to you. So Alex says that they've heard that no matter how ready you think you are, you're never ready for university. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I was in the same boat. I think from in high school, I was super nervous, and I've been hearing a lot of like people in university talking about how stressful and how hard it is, and I think that once you've taken your first exam in university, you'll realize that whether you did it really well or whether it was a really bad exam, I think then you'll know how to buffer, like how much time you're supposed to take to study certain courses, because some things come easier to some people and some come a little bit harder. So you just gotta study depending on like the course and also how you're doing in the course as well. To transition to university, it's also really fun as well. So there's also really good parts about it as well. And I think just don't stress yourself out too much. And when you're here, you'll understand. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So there's a question from Minal. How hard is first year engineering and what exactly do you focus on in first year? Michelle, do you want to speak to that as well?
Sure. In first year, you are taking all the general courses everyone else is taking in first year, and the course load for first and second term, if you're able to like move around, it's about the same. And in first year, you have like all your peers in the same lecture hall, so you get to meet so many people. And I remember, I think Kelsey said as well that you are in the standard timetable with the same people who has the same schedule as you. So that's really nice because you have that core group that's with you through both terms. And yeah, first year has been was super fun for me as well. It was hard, but I think studying groups really helped with that. And when you're here at UBC, you'll understand that it's really, really nice, and you have so much support from professors and your peers as well, and other older students as well. Has really helped me.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. I thought I was a good student in high school, and then I got into university, and it was like really challenging, and I failed all my first midterms, which was quite shocking for me. But then it totally overhauled the way I study, and I learned that there's so many resources on campus to help you. I struggled in math at university, so I was at the tutor center. There's a math tutor center available for free. You just drop in. The tutors there are incredibly smart and can help you with any questions you have. And I went there probably 3 times a week to get help and ended up acing math because of it. So don't worry, you're probably if you're like me and you struggle for the first month, just look for resources. The professors were amazing. I went to a lot of drop-in hours with professors to get help on topics that I didn't understand as well. So it may be a little bit different from how you study in high school, but you can adapt.
Awesome, thank you. And Kelsey, I'm going to address this question towards you as well. So I know you said that you kind of had an idea going into university that you wanted to be a civil engineer because of what your friend's dad, I think it was, kind of told you about that. But was there ever a time that you felt like you didn't know enough about the field that you want to go into, or in first year that you still felt like you had to explore some other fields?
Yeah, I even though my dad was an engineer and I had this idea of structural engineering, when people asked me what an engineer was in high school, I was like, I don't know. I just kind of blindly leapt into it, and I'm really happy that I did. But yeah, I was definitely curious about a lot of other fields. I realized that a lot of other programs really interested me, and I seriously considered going into engineering physics because they do some really cool stuff. But I think in the back of my mind, I was always thinking about this dream of being a structural engineer, and I kind of kept drifting that way. And then you don't normally specialize into your field until 4th year. So by the time I got to 4th year, I realized that I'd really enjoyed my structural classes, and that's how I ended up deciding on it, as well as the co-op work experience to show me that that's what I wanted to do. But you do have, I think, 5 different work terms in co-op. So you can do a different job in each of those work terms if you wanted to, if you're super unsure, and just try out as many jobs as you can.
Great. And speaking of co-op, we did get quite a few questions of co-op. So I think we've lost Cheyenne right now. I think her internet connection is not great. But Cheyenne, if you're on there, if you want to at least, oh, I see you now. Okay, great. Perfect. So we have a lot of questions about co-op. So a couple of people asked, is co-op required? And I'll just answer that quickly. Co-op is not required. We have about 50% of our students in the program are currently in co-op. And it is something that you apply into at the start of your 2nd year. And you usually don't start your first work term until the summer after 2nd year. There's tons of info on the co-op website. So if you did want to check out more about what would your schedule look like and all those sorts of things, you can definitely check that out there. There's another question though from Carolina. Is it more difficult to find co-op placement in certain fields such as biomedical engineering? And I think our co-op office does a great job to find jobs in any field that you're in. Cheyenne, did you want to talk about, was it ever difficult to find a job in co-op?
It definitely gets easier as you get more experience. Getting that first co-op can be quite difficult, but once you have that under your belt, it gets easier. Also, when you're looking for co-ops, they have, I would say, 4 times the students are looking for co-ops in the summer versus in the fall or winter semesters. So that definitely plays a factor. If you're looking for a co-op for only a 4-month term, it also makes it harder because a lot of companies like longer terms because then they can train you and have you do work for longer. But I was always able to find a co-op. Most of our students are able to find a co-op. So it also depends on the industry. So right now there might be less jobs, where next year it might be booming more and people are looking for more co-ops. So it is up and down depending on the year. But there's always lots out there for sure.
Definitely. And I think our co-op advisors are great and they're there to support our students. So they're definitely, if you're struggling, they'll help you. A lot of students, if you don't find a co-op placement, you can kind of reschedule when you're going to take that placement and take courses instead. So that's a great opportunity. Kelsey or Cheyenne, did either of you ever have a co-op opportunity outside of Canada or know anyone that did that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I've had a few friends, some went to Germany to do co-op terms, some went to Japan, and they all had like amazing times. So our co-op office has a lot of different opportunities internationally, and I've always heard good things about them.
Awesome. And another question, would you recommend co-op for students planning on going to grad school instead of immediately joining the workforce? Do either of you have any opinions on that piece? Yeah, Kelsey.
Yeah, definitely do work experience before you go straight into grad school. I've had a few friends that did an undergrad straight into graduate school and then came out and weren't really sure if what they went into was what they wanted to do because they hadn't gotten any real world experience. So whether that's doing co-op or finding a job after you graduate on your own, I really recommend getting some real world experience before going into your graduate studies.
Great. So that was a question, that we had from Srutika and Alice as well. And Maddie, I think we answered your question about what kind of competition getting into co-op is like as well. So those were some of our co-op questions. So I wanted to make sure that we got those out of the way, and we have a few more minutes for some more kind of student experience questions before we get back in, or before we finish off the session, and I answer the rest of those admissions questions for you. Okay, so there's a few questions that came in. I'm just looking for where my spot is. Sorry about that. So there was a question about, is there a way to go through engineering and and do some courses at UBC about technical writing? So that's definitely a required course. Cheyenne, do you want to talk about kind of what your technical writing courses were like?
Yeah, for sure. So as a requirement through engineering, you're required to take an English course. A lot of students take this in their first year, and then second year you take a technical writing course. Your technical writing course varies for which department. So I know with chemical engineering, we did technical writing in collaboration with our lab course. So it was a bit of both. You also have 2 humanities electives during your degree. So if you're really into writing, you can take more English courses above what the required is, for sure.
Excellent. There's a question that says, is it true that professors make the first few exams, tests, and projects really difficult so that they can weed out the smart ones? And I know that this is something I've heard before. I think it's in movies and stuff where they say, look to the left and look to the right, and one of you won't be here at the end of this year or something. And I think what I hear from students is that that's really not true. Michelle, I think you and I have talked about this before. Do you want to elaborate on this piece?
Yeah, for sure. I think that I've also had that mindset coming into university as well. I was like, oh, they just want, us to fail. But it's so not true. It's I know that it can seem really daunting because you're seeing the material for the first time, and it's definitely going to be hard, but they don't specifically make it so that you're not going to be doing well. And let's say you're not doing well, you can always message your TAs or get in contact with the professors, and they would, a lot of them are, I've always explained a certain concept that I didn't really understand. So no, to answer that question, they don't try to weed out anybody. It is that misconception because it is hard, and you have so much support. So I wouldn't really worry about being weeded out.
Excellent. And another question regarding residence. So Elizabeth asked this, and she directed it directly at Michelle to say, did you live in residence during your first year? She hears a lot about the campus life and first year residence experience, but she also lives in Vancouver and would probably stay at home if she went to UBC. So if you did live at home, did you find it difficult to connect with campus life? Or if you lived in residence, would you recommend it?
Yeah, hi Elizabeth. And for me, I lived at home because I lived not too far from UBC. I lived near about a bus ride 20 minutes away from UBC. And so that's why I thought that it was just more like feasible for me to live at home. And for your answer, if it's difficult to connect with campus life, it's really not, because campus has a lot of events that happen to help you make more friends, as well as there's a I think it's a program. It's a college called Collegia, and this is for those who live at home. It's your space, sort of like your res on campus, where you can hang out with everyone who's also a commuter as well, from all the different programs at UBC. So I've met a lot of people in arts, solder, forestry, everyone else there, and it's been really nice because you make such great connections there. And I think it's also a lot of my friends have also lived on res as well, and they really liked it as well. But if you're living pretty close to UBC, you might want to save that money and live at home. But yeah, either way, it's good.
And did either Kelsey or Cheyenne want to talk about residence experiences?
Yeah, I lived on residence almost every single year. I think first year residence is guaranteed, and I had a lot of fun. And I'm also not a morning person, so being able to live right on campus and not have to commute to school was a huge bonus. But yeah, there's a lot of fun events that happen in first year residence so that you can get to know other students as well. And hanging out in engineering, you find that maybe all of your friends become engineers. So the only way I made friends outside of engineering was by living in residence.
Nice. Okay, so I think we're going to wrap up the panel right there, and I'm going to finish off our session by answering some of the admissions questions that came in. I'll get all of you to stay on in case there's any questions that are kind of student kind of based, but I'll answer any of the more technical questions. So the first one I have is Esmera asked, are there any student professor projects that students undertake? So I'm guessing that means research or working with a professor. Have any of you had experience doing research on campus or working with a professor in a lab or anything like that? No? Okay, so I know that we actually do have a brand new program that's just been started called Create You, and that is started by the mechanical engineering program, but it's open to students in any program of engineering, and with that they can actually do a research work term. So you get paid to do research, but it also counts towards credit. So that's a really awesome opportunity to be a part of that as well. A couple of students, Rush and Suvi, asked, when can I expect my admission decision? That's always the top of everyone's mind. So if you're in grade 12 right now and you've applied, admissions is currently working on sending out those offers. We expect the majority of students to have those offers received by about mid-April or so, but those are rolling offers. They do continue to go out all the way till the end of April, as well as students will still get offers into May and June as well. But the majority of students should have an offer by about mid-April, especially if you're a BC student. You'll probably hear from UBC in that first or second week of April. Okay, a couple questions about scholarships. So Jessica asked, when will we find out about scholarships that we receive? And scholarships are going out. The majority of scholarship offers will be out by mid-April. There's a few, especially faculty-specific scholarships that we have. So Suvi asked about that as well. And basically, for those scholarships, they're not able to be stacked with other larger awards like the presidential scholarship. So with those, they might go out actually later throughout April and throughout May as well. But that's when the majority of scholarships will go out, likely before the end of April. Some questions about courses. So Jessica asked, when will students start signing up for courses? So course registration for first year students starts in mid-June. I believe it's around June 16th, I want to say off the top of my head. You'll get an email from UBC. So if you've been admitted and you've accepted your offer, you'll get an email about registering in courses, your exact date and time. And if you're in grade 12, we have the first year Facebook group already started, so you can join that for your year, and then we'll be sending out tons of information as well about registration, so you don't have to worry too much about that just yet. And as mentioned a few times today, you have what's called a standard timetable, so most of your classes are already planned out for you. It's just picking your standard timetable and adding in your English and humanities for first year. Emily asked, how many courses do you take at once and how many do you take in first year versus second year? I think Michelle basically answered this already. In first year, you're generally taking 6 or 7 courses per term, and that's about the same amount that you'll continue taking throughout second year and into third and fourth year as well. The scope of those courses tend to change, and you tend to get more project-based courses going on to your later years, but you'll be generally taking about that many courses. Kat asked, does UBC allow for any transfer credits for AP students for engineering? Yeah, so if you have AP or IB or British Pattern Education coming into the program, you can get credit for those courses, especially if it's like a humanities course or an English course, go for it. We don't always recommend, we recommend to take your first year math and physics courses at UBC because that is going to be the foundation of your degree. I see Kelsey nodding. Do you want to add anything to that?
I took AP Math and AP English in high school, but I'm very, very glad that I still took math at first year university. As I mentioned, I still somehow struggled with it. Definitely sign up for it. But I skipped first year English at UBC because I already had credit, which was awesome. It saves you money and time.
Excellent. And Arabi asks, are you required to take computer science courses for all engineering programs? So there is for sure a first year course that you have to take called AppSci 160. But other than that, it'll depend on which program you're going into. Michelle, do you want to mention what you learn in AppSci 160?
Yeah, you're just coding in C, and it was really fun because we got to do a lot of different problems, and they are setting you up that you've like no experience in coding at all. So the professor really breaks it down, and you have all your peers with you doing labs every week, and you're gonna have a lot of support. So with coding, I remember I was really nervous, but it turned out to be really cool. And even in biomedical engineering second year, we have to take another coding course as well. So honestly, it's been really fun.
Awesome, thanks. And there's a few questions about the pre-biomedical standard timetable. So one question about what is that? And so that is if you're interested in going into biomedical engineering, you can actually start in the pre-biomedical engineering timetable. Michelle's giving thumbs up because that's the program that she's in biomedical engineering right now. And you did the PBME last year, right?
Yep, I did.
Yeah. Perfect. So that's really an introduction where you get some biomedical courses in addition to most of the courses that students would take in first year, plus some extra biomedical courses. To apply for that, you'll get an email. It usually comes out around the beginning of April. It might be delayed this year with everyone moving to working off campus, but you'll definitely get an email when they're ready to send out that form. And it asks a few questions about there's a math question, there's kind of a more theoretical type question asking about how you would deal with certain scenarios, and then they just want to find out more about you. So it's not about right or wrong answers, it's about how do you think and how do you solve problems. And so that's what that form will be about. But you'll get an email about when to submit that form, so don't worry about that piece. And if you are in the pre-biomed timetable, then as long as you maintain a 72% in your first year, you're able to move directly into the second year of the biomedical engineering program. At the end of your first year, if you decided you wanted to go into a different program, though, you still have that opportunity to go through the regular second year placement process that we have. And so that'll bring us to some of our second year placement questions that we have. So Manav asked, is it guaranteed that I'll get my intended engineering major after first year? It is guaranteed at the Okanagan campus, but it is not guaranteed at the Vancouver campus. The Vancouver campus is competitive, and you're essentially ranking your top choice programs, and that you are placed into the program essentially using your GPA. There's also the advantage where you can write a personal profile, and that will help boost your GPA. So that's another option as well. But really taking some of those extracurricular activities that we talked about, being on a design team, things like that can really help give you a good understanding of what program you want to go into, where you'd be successful. And you also have the first classes, AppSci 100 and AppSci 101, that actually teach you about all of our different engineering programs so that you can really make a good decision about which one you want to go into. Did anyone want to mention anything about that second year placement process?
I would just say, like, go in with an open mind. Like, a lot of people go in being like, I want this discipline, and then they get to UBC, and we have, what, 13 disciplines or something now? And so, like, you might not understand the other disciplines. So if you go in with an open mind, you'll be able to see all the fields.
Excellent. Yeah, great advice. I know so many students that really wanted to come in with a specific one in mind, and sometimes they do choose that one, but sometimes they find out about programs they didn't know existed, like geological engineering, which isn't a super common program, and they just love it and then go into that and are so happy that they had the opportunity to further explore engineering programs. So I definitely think that's an advantage of UBC. Another question is, sorry, kind of related to the biomedical one, but is it possible to get into biomedical engineering without having done the first year pre-biomedical timetable in first year? And yes, it is possible. It's the same placement process that you would do for any of our other programs. So you're still going to rank all of those programs you're interested in, and then you can possibly get into the biomedical program if that's your interest. Which engineering programs are the most competitive to get into, asks Ava. So Ava, probably your two hardest programs to get into would be engineering physics, and then the second highest GPA one is mechanical engineering, and the rest of them tend to vary year to year. In your first year class, AppSci 100 and 101, you actually get taught about what the traditional averages to get into those programs are, what to expect, all of those sorts of things. So you're really well prepared when it comes to the end of the year and you're actually applying for those programs. And then Gabrielle asked, what is the maximum number of programs I can apply to? So Gabrielle, I'm not sure if you are looking to apply to UBC itself. So if you're applying to UBC, you can put two different choices on your application. So one of those can be the Bachelor of Applied Science, which is our engineering degree. And you can put a second choice as art or science or anything else that you might be interested in. And you'll be assessed for your first choice first. If you're not admissible to that one, then they'll look at your second choice. For the engineering programs themselves, I have 14 different programs. You rank those all at the end of your first year. So you'll put potentially first choice as chemical and biological engineering, and then maybe you put your second choice as just chemical engineering, and then maybe you put your third choice as materials engineering. So you might have a lot of programs that are very related to each other that you can still put as your top 3 programs, but it depends on kind of which one you'll get into based on your GPA and your personal statement piece. So hopefully that gives some good introduction to that. A few more questions about research. So I think we answered, so Dia, Amanda, and Rachel asked about research opportunities. And so I think I mentioned there's the Create You program that you can be a part of. And there's all undergraduate research funding available as well on campus. So students can do a work term so that you're getting paid for research. And the Create You one also gives you credit for your courses as part of that. So those are really great options. Now, just to wrap up the last of our questions that we have today, is Gabrielle asked, is the architecture program part of engineering? And so while architecture is similar in some aspects to engineering, architecture is actually part of the Faculty of Applied Science, but it's not part of the engineering program itself. So we have a new undergraduate program that's Bachelor of Design in Architecture and Landscape Architecture. And so that's actually part of our School of Architecture and Landscape Architecture, which is part of the Faculty of Applied Science, but not part of our engineering program. So it's a little bit confusing. But to architecture yourself, you do have to do an undergraduate degree first. So that Bachelor of Design program could be a good option. We do have a lot of students that will go through civil engineering, potentially to go into architecture, or you can do anything. So if you look at the architecture program itself, it's a master's degree, and you can look at what those requirements are and what might best suit you to go into that. Ava asked about how big are the classes at UBC. So Michelle, do you want to mention how big your kind of first year classes were?
Yeah, for first year, some of your physics and math and English classes are going to be bigger. So I would say around 100 to 200 people max. And then when you transition into second year, it's gonna be way smaller. So right now my class size is around 40 to 50 versus first year when it was like a couple hundred. And it was really scary, but if you just kind of stay with your core group, or if you meet new friends, it'll be all good.
Excellent. Cheyenne, what do your classes look like now that you're almost done your degree?
So I have like the classes that are in the chemical engineering stream, and those are like 130 people because we're all in the same. But then now that I'm in like technical electives, they can be anywhere from like 20 to, I actually think I was in a class of 12 people last semester. So the more you specialize, the smaller the classes are.
Awesome, thanks. So then there's a couple last questions to finish up with. So Animal asks, after completing your bachelor's degree, do you have to get a STEM degree separately? So I should mention that STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. And so we use that term to just talk about anytime we're talking about science, technology, engineering, or math type courses. So an engineering degree is a STEM degree, I should say. So it's not two things that you have to get, but getting an engineering degree lets you work in the field of STEM. So hopefully that clarifies that piece if you haven't heard that word before. Kat has a question for Kelsey. As a new engineer entering the force, I understand that you are required to work for 4 years before you become a full-fledged engineer. What does that process look like, and what does it mean to become a full-fledged engineer? Do you want to address that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you do need 4 years of work experience as an engineer in training. So I'm still registered with the Engineers and Geoscientists Association of BC as an engineer in training. So what that means is I'm working under the supervision of another engineer. They review all my work, they train me, they sign off on the projects. So when you become a professional engineer, you get a seal with your name and your registration number on it. And that means that you're taking personal responsibility for the work that you're putting out, that the buildings we're designing are in fact safe. So right now, all of my supervisors are sealing the buildings that I design after doing their own reviews of them. I am more than 4 years out of school, but I didn't apply for my PN just yet. I actually submitted my application probably 2.5 weeks ago, so I am expecting to get my PN rather soon. And what that involved was there's an exam that you have to take before you can apply for your PN, and it's a law and ethics exam. I recommend taking that pretty soon out of university because you take a law and ethics course at UBC as well in 4th year, and it's basically the same thing, so it wasn't too challenging. And then the next thing you do is you fill out an application, and the application has 40 different competencies, and these are skills that you develop while working as an engineer. So you just talk about some projects you've worked on and how you've developed these skills, and then you submit your application and it gets reviewed by multiple different engineers to verify that the skills I've developed does qualify me to be a professional engineer so that I can seal my own designs and my own buildings. So the 4 years, they can either be work experience, and 1 year can come from doing a master's program, or your co-op experience can count towards your 4 years as well.
Great. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining our panel and for being a part of this session today. I am just going to post one more slide for everyone to see right now. So I know we got a ton of questions in today, and I think we'd be on for maybe another hour answering all of them. So we're going to wrap up the session for right now, but what I did just post on your screen is some great resources. So if you're looking to get into engineering or into UBC in general, u.ubc.ca is a great resource to talk about what that application process looks like. We also have our Engineering Stories channel. So if you go to youtube.com/engineering stories, there are great videos that are going to answer some of your questions that we didn't get to today as well. So there's questions about, or there's videos, sorry, about what residence life is like, about time management, about the workload, what the workload's like, what it exactly means to be in engineering. So there's tons of great resources on there, and I'd encourage you to check it out. And then if you do have any questions that weren't answered today, please send me an email at erin.fair@ubc.ca, and I would love to answer those questions for you personally. Again, there are so many questions coming in. There were so many great questions that we had, but we just don't have enough time to get to all of them. But thank you so much for being a part of this, and thank you for participating. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. And again, please feel free to email me with any questions you have. So thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day, and hopefully we'll be able to welcome you to campus sometime in the future. Thank you.